Motor, J Motor, J Motor, J Motor, recognize Heckler House, Heckler House. Oh, 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 oh.
What's up, YouTube? This week there's not really anything major going on in the news, especially with like politics or anything like that. I mean, the impeachment query is still just starting, and you know, the Democrats are still trying to go off with this big impeachment hoax. So we'll just see it fall flat on their faces eventually. There are a couple of things I want to talk to you about, but it has nothing to do with politics or worldwide news or anything like that. First thing I want to talk to you about is I've been checking out a show called SEE. It stars Jason Momoa, and I know I am not a fan of Jason Momoa at all. I think he's one of the worst actors ever. And it's literally been proven time and time again how bad he is. However, I have to admit, in this show, you know, he was watchable. He's still not doing it's really still not good at acting. But in this one, you know, it's overlookable. He's okay. Just because they didn't give him a whole lot of lines. So that helps. Less lines, the better for him. Basically, the show is about some virus and then post-apocalypse, and then now hundreds of years later, you know, there's just a few million people left on the planet. Humans can no longer see; they're all blind. And then there's a guy who ends up being born that can see. He has a couple of children that he leaves behind for Jason Momoa and his new wife to raise and teach him knowledge and blah 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 about the world until they're able to leave on their own. For most post-apocalyptic television shows, majority of them just do not work. They've tried and tried again to make a post-apocalyptic show that actually works, that the audience actually likes. I know that they tried a couple times in the 90s with a couple of shows. One of them was like Jerome or something like that. I never did really watch it or the other one that they did. They also tried here a few years ago to make another one, something about trains or something like that. I remember it was in the first season or something like that, where you had a few young people was trying to restart learning how to harness energy or whatever, get energy working again. I can't remember what it was. But it didn't work either. It didn't last very long. Most shows like this don't. I don't know why. Some of them I find kind of intriguing. Like this one. I went ahead and checked out They only got 4 episodes up, but I went ahead and checked it out. It's intriguing, but at the same time, the idea of them blind fighting, like they're fighting, have this huge scene where they're a bunch of them are fighting and they're all blind, and it makes no sense for the most part. Some of it, not all of it. You tell that they're supposed to be using the ropes or whatever that they have with them to or figure out where they're going, and little chimes or whatever they run into to make them realize where they're going or some shit. But as far as the fighting goes, it just, I don't know, the fighting's a little iffy for me. I think that's a little crazy. Throw a bunch of blind people together and have them fight. Makes no sense. But the show, it's interesting. I'll probably keep watching it just to figure out what's going on. But of course, the Queen is batshit. You know, that's just, she's going off like all these emotions, and she's just over dramatizing herself, and it's just ridiculous. She's a drama queen, big time, and she's nuts in the head. That's usually what happens. Anyway, with drama queens, you never let them try to be a ruler or a leader. They just can't do it. It's not. And this is nothing against women, but majority of the time, women do not make good leaders. It's not to saying that men make the best leaders either, because there's been obviously been some bad ones. But the majority of the time, women cannot lead. They're over emotional. They don't think logically. But moving on. It's an interesting show. If you like post-apocalyptic shows, go ahead and check it out. You might like it. Alright, moving on. The next thing I want to talk to you about is I just watched the very first episode of The Mandalorian, Star Wars Mandalorian. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great. It was just kind of you definitely tell it was TV. It wasn't, like movie cinematic. It felt off. It didn't quite feel like a Star Wars show. Now I want you to understand, they have 2 main characters in there. Actually 3, to be honest. From the original Star Wars. However, they've gone and changed them all. And the reason why they did this is because Disney does not want to pay George any more money. So what they're doing is they're taking stories that are actually for the original characters and then swapping in new characters that look like him or act like him, and then claiming that they're, that this is the story they're about, when they're actually, these characters are supposed to be the original characters. They're changing it all so they don't have to pay George. For instance, there's no doubt that The Mandalorian is actually about Boba Fett. That's Boba Fett. They just changed it because they can't use the original character, because then they have to pay George, and they don't want to do that. So they call him The Mandalorian instead, because he's supposed to be a Mandalorian now. Anyway, it's literally Boba Fett. I mean, you got a bounty hunter. He's in a Mandalorian suit, and he's taking bounties. Now they've also got Billy D. Williams in there, and he's playing some type of, I don't know, bounty hunters. The guy puts out the tickets for the bounties. You know, he's in there, and then you'll find out at the very end of the episode. I'm not trying to give any spoilers away, but you'll find out at the very end they introduce another character that's actually supposed to be somebody else. However, the thing is it's a really cheap way of, they were supposed to do a movie about both these characters, original characters, but this is the cheap way to get out of actually having to tell the story or background stories of these two characters and just making up a character that's the same species or the same look alike, whatever. That's what they've done. That's what Disney has done. They also did a cheap way of trying to explain why this character is so old. It drove me nuts when I saw the end. The very first part of this episode, it's a cliche, real bad cliche. He goes into a bar on some ice planet looking for a bounty, and he just walks up and stands at the bar and doesn't say a word. And then you got two thugs in there trying to mess around with another guy, and then he beats the crap out of them. And then, you know, the bounty's actually the chicken shit guy who's getting beat up on. Anyways, they get off the ice planet, he turns his bounty in, and it shows the carbonite system. He uses the carbonite system to catch his bounties. Ooh, that don't sound familiar. Anyways, he gets to this other, he's given another bounty, but it's real secretive-like, so he can't go after this bounty like he normally does. So he goes to this planet. I guess there's supposed to be some pirates or whatever that's hiding this bounty. He meets this one guy, and y'all, it's really recognizable who the little guy is that he runs up across. Anyway, he's trying to. The little guy tells him he has to ride these stupid little creatures or whatever to get to where he's going. And, you know, the Mandalorian, he's having a hard time trying to tame one. Well, then he tells him, like, oh, your ancestors could tame the great mythical such as beasts and just about every other kind of beast. Surely this ain't nothing to you. The next thing you know, the Mandalorian tames him, like, right off the bat. I'm like, okay, that's dope. Anyways, he meets a robot. The robot's kind of retarded. He's going in there and shooting everybody. And then he goes in there and he helps them. And he just decimates everybody. Makes no sense. You know, hundreds and hundreds of these guys are shooting at him. Yet he's able to take them all out. Then he goes in and he sees a spherical ball or whatever. He opens it up, and I'm not going to tell you who the character is. Oh, I mean, if you can't figure it out, whatever. Anyway, you should be able to figure it out. He opens it up, and he says, oh my gosh, look at it. This is just a baby. And he's supposed to be 50 years old already? A baby that's 50 years... Oh, come on. I'm not buying it. A baby who's 50 years old. Give me a break. Like I said, it's a cheap way to explain how the character is supposed to be so old. It's ridiculous. Uh, anyways, the show's kind of it's, you know, not that great and it's not that good. So, or it's not that bad, nor is it not that great. So, let me know what your thoughts about the show, if you've watched it or not, down in the comments below. I'd like to hear some other opinions about this show. Alright, so next we're going to move on to your B-rated movies. What's up, movie holics? This week we went with sci-fi. We're back to science fiction. And one of them I chose to watch was I don't know, it didn't make no sense. And the other one, that one's a cult classic. It's something everyone should watch if they're into sci-fi. So the first one we're going to talk about, it's sci-fi fantasy horror kind of. It was a movie that was done in Germany. I'm not a real huge fan of movies that are done overseas. Most of them, including the UK movies, they're just strange. It may have to do with, you know, cultures being different sometimes, but a lot of times it's just, especially Japanese movies, they are just out there. So I'm not a big fan, usually a big fan of overseas movies. They're just really bad and really cheesy most of the time. Every now and then you'll find one that's good. But this movie was done in Germany. It was originally called Joey. But over here they changed the name to Making Contact. And it was done in 1985. It starred Joshua Morel and Eva Krill. Or Krill, sorry. I couldn't find a box office number on it, so I couldn't tell you how well it did. I'm pretty sure it didn't do all that good. For the most part. I'm about to tell you why. The movie is basically about a kid who... his father dies. He lives with his mother. He starts hearing voices on a toy phone, and he thinks it's his father talking to him. He tells some kids at school about it. He starts getting picked on. And this teacher tries to help him out and then starts going over his house, trying to talk to his mother about the problem. And he seems like a real creep too. The teacher's just, you know, one of those pedophile creeps, you know. I mean, he's not, but he just comes off that way. Anyways, he's trying to push the mother to make the kid get some psychological help. Well, once the kid starts talking to supposedly his father over the phone, he starts developing sort of telekinetic powers. He can move objects with his mind. His mother and the teacher finds out, and the teacher doesn't think it's normal, which it's not. He says, I'll just grab a couple colleagues from a college I know, and then they'll come over here and we'll just run a few tests on it. And the mother was leery at first, but then she's like, okay, because it kept pushing. Well, instead of just a couple of freaking colleagues, he brings a whole army of people. I mean, it's just ridiculous. There's like 50 people that show up at the house. Now, just before this, the kid finds there's this old abandoned house on top of the hill behind where he lives, and it was owned by an old ventriloquist. He goes up there one day and he finds an old doll ventriloquist dummy. He puts it in his room, but then the doll starts talking to him, telling him the one he's actually talking to is the old ventriloquist, and it's not his daddy, and that he's lying to him, and that he's going to cause him all kinds of problems. But yet the dummy is actually some type of demon or something, and it constantly throws him around, electrocutes him, all kinds of crap. Well, somehow the dummy, there's a bunch of kids in their neighborhood, and the dummy traps them in the old house. And he's got to go up there and try to save them. The kid does. So he runs out on the testing that they're doing on him with this little girl he likes. And they go up there to try to help the other kids. And supposedly the ventriloquist tells him that he wasn't strong enough to stop the dummy when he had him, but he should be strong enough to do it. If he just go through this door towards this light, he'd be able to do it. So the kid does it. It kind of kills him, but then he comes right back at the very end of the movie, and that's the end of the movie. I mean, it was just most of it did not make any sense. Half the time, he doesn't even call his mom mommy until like 3/4 of the way into the movie. You know, you don't even realize who this woman really is. I mean, you get a sense of who it is, but he doesn't call her mommy or anything. You know, it's just, I don't know. It's weird. It was strange. But that's Germans for you, I guess. I don't know. The way they make movies over there, I don't know if that's the usual norm or why. I think this is one of the first German movies. I may have watched a couple before, but I think this is one of the very first ones I've watched that just absolutely made hardly any sense. It was kind of disturbing too, and some of the stuff in there. But anyways, I really wouldn't recommend this movie. It's not really that good. It's pretty bad. It was kind of weird story. Now, it could have been done better. Honestly, this actually could have been a pretty cool movie. But the way they did it was just, it didn't piece together right. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. So, for that alone, and the acting was just mediocre. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't really all that great. So, yeah, I can't recommend this one. If you want to watch some kind of weird ass, twisted, cheesy movie, I mean, go ahead, but I wouldn't recommend it. It made no sense to me. Now, next one we're going to talk about is absolutely a cult classic. It has become a huge following for some time now. It's a very underrated movie. It should have been done so much better. Unfortunately, when it first came out, it didn't. And it was a movie done by John Carpenter, the legend John Carpenter. And it was called They Live. It was done in 1988. It grossed about $14 million domestically. It didn't say what it made worldwide, but it should have done way better worldwide. I don't know, but here in the U.S., it only made about $14 million, which it was okay for an underrated movie, but it should have done way better. This stars Roddy Rod Piper, the wrestler, Apparently John Carpenter and him met at WrestleMania 3, and he said, I got a movie for you, I'd like you to star in it, and they became really good friends. It also has Keith David in it, and Meg Foster as the leading lady. And she's fairly well known for a lot of B-rated movies. She's kind of a B-movie queen. Anyways, the movie is basically about an alien invasion, pretty much. The way it starts off, you know, he's a homeless guy looking for work or whatever. He's kind of like a journeyman. He's just traveling around. He comes to the city looking for work. But he notices something going on across the street from where he's staying in this church. He knows something's going on, he's just not sure what. Next thing you know, he sees all these cops show up or whatever. They start storming the place, and they destroy the place where he's staying at, which is like a poor community or whatever. They've kind of like pitched tents and trailers and shit. The police came in there and destroys it all. So he goes over there to look at the church again, and he sees these he noticed that they had boxes there before. He grabs one of these boxes that the police didn't see because it's holed up in a wall somewhere behind a hidden panel. And he notices that they're just sunglasses in this box, which makes no sense to him. So he tries them out. Next thing you know, he's seeing, instead of seeing what the signs on the billboards and the newspapers and you know, stuff like that, all these signs actually say something different, like obey, submit, marry, reproduce, you know, etc., etc. And he's like, what the hell is going on? He takes off the glasses and everything looks normal. He puts them back on. He sees all the subliminal messages. And then he notices that one guy in particular looks like, you know, he calls him Crater Face or Swiss cheese or whatever. He's definitely an alien. He pulls off his glasses and it looks normal, but then he puts glasses back on and he looks like an alien. So he starts noticing all this, and he goes on a killing spree, killing all these aliens. He finally he has a big fight scene with you know, Keith David, his black friend. Eventually gets him to wear the glasses. Meg Foster, he uses her to escape the cops. Gets away from the cops because they put his picture out that, you know, he's off killing people. But she nearly kills him at first. Later on, they meet up again. Him and the black guy, you know, they figure out something weird's going on. And then a guy they know that was part of some underground resistance movement that was, you know, organizing everything in the church or whatever from earlier. He tells them to go to the secret meeting where there's a bunch of other resistance fighters. So they go there and they grab guns and stuff. And of course he runs into Meg Foster again. She's like, oh, I'm a part of the resistance now, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, the aliens show up and start killing everybody. They have these watches that have like a radio sorta, and it also opens up like a little transport tube so they can go underground into an underground base, Well, they accidentally come across one when they're in the shootout, and they open up a hole into the underground base, and they jump in to the underground base, kind of like a portal. It disappears, and now they're trapped in the underground base. Well, they meet up with someone that they recognize from the community area or whatever. He was homeless too. Now he's rich because that's what the aliens do. They, you know, if that you allow them to conquer your world, they'll pay you to keep quiet about it and help them out. Anyways, they're going around through this base, and they figure out it opens up into this network called Cable 44, which apparently has a signal on top of the roof that's broadcasting that doesn't allow humans to see the rest of the aliens. So they blast their way through there with eventually finding Meg Foster. She's still alive. She didn't get killed. And they go up there, and next thing you know, Meg Foster turns on him and kills the black guy, and then tries to kill him, but he kills her. And then they're fixing to shoot him on top of the roof, but then he finally shoots the what looks like a satellite dish is actually some type of weird transmitting signal receiver or something. He shoots it, blows it up. Well, they shoot him. He doesn't really die though. He's shot. He's laying there. He's just laying there. He flips them off. And of course, everywhere around the world, you know, everybody could see the aliens for what they were and what's going on now that the signal's no longer being broadcast. So that's the end of the movie. It's an awesome movie. It's a real shame they didn't do a sequel to it. I think they should have done a sequel where he gets saved. He doesn't die. But anyways, like I said, it's a shame they didn't do a sequel. It is a really badass movie. You probably heard the quote, I came here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum. That quote is from this movie. I definitely highly recommend you watch this movie if you're into sci-fi. 2 thumbs up. Amazing, amazing movie. That's it for this week. If you give me any suggestions down in the comment section down below, if you have any movies you'd like me to review that I might have missed at some point in my life, please leave your suggestions and I'll get to them as soon as I can. That's it for now. I'll see you next week. I thank you for watching. You know the deal. Subscribe, hit the bell, blah, 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 like, whatever. I told you you'd be told the truth, and you've just been told.